Doom, a game that needs no introduction. Created by idsoftware in 1993, it is one of the most influential games ever, inspiring countless of games and helping define the first-person shooter genre, and is still talked about 30 years later. And I'm here to ask one simple question: is this game still worth playing today? So I have a lot of nostalgia to this game. My dad used to play it quite a lot, but I never actually used to play it that much, and I never actually completed the game. So for the sake of this review, I went back and basically completed through the entire game. And I'm basically playing it through this perspective of a new player playing it now, instead of someone that grew up with it. At its core, Doom is incredibly simple. You run through levels, fight demons, collect weapons, find keys, and survive. And the simplicity is one of the most biggest strengths. The game gets straight to the action. There is no complicated skill trees, no long tutorial, and no unnecessary mechanics. You pick up a weapon and start fighting. For new players, this actually makes Doom surprisingly easy to understand. The combat is fast, satisfying, and still holds up today. Running through levels while managing different enemies and weapons is still a lot of fun. The game encourages you to keep moving, and that fast-paced run-and-gun gameplay is a big reason Doom remains enjoyable. Doom's weapons variety is one of its strongest features. Starting with the shotgun and eventually gaining weapons like the plasma rifle and BFG, each weapon feels useful in different situations. The enemies are also memorable. The demons have different strengths and weaknesses, forcing you to think about how you approach fights. However, some enemies have aged better than others. The Spectres, for example, are an interesting idea because their invisibility adds a horror element, but sometimes they can become frustrating because they blend into the environment and can damage you before you even realise they are there. One of the most impressive parts of Doom is the level design. The levels are much more open than many people might expect from a game released in 1993. There are secrets to find, areas to explore, and reasons to replay levels. However, the openness can also create problems. Sometimes you can press a switch and have no idea what will actually change. You might open a door somewhere in the level and have to search around to figure out where you need to go next. There were also moments where I became stuck and I had to look up where to go. So while the exploration is impressive, the game does sometimes expect a lot from the player. Doom provides a fun challenge. The difficulty increases as you progress through the episodes, with later levels becoming more demanding. Saving frequently definitely helped because without saving, some sections could become frustrating. The challenge is more enjoyable, but there are moments where the game feels difficult because of its design rather than the actual combat. After completing the original 3 episodes, I also played Episode 4 Live Flesh Consumed. Unlike the first 3 episodes, this was not part of the original 1993 release and was added later with the Ultimate Doom. Episode 4 is much harder than what came before. The levels are more demanding, enemies are placed more aggressively, and the game expects you to already understand Doom's mechanics. Some levels feel like a test of everything you've learned from the previous episodes. It also brings back enemies and challenges from earlier in the game. Atmosphere and horror. Although Doom is remembered as an action game, there is also a horror element. The dark environments, demons, creepy sounds and atmosphere creating a feeling that something dangerous could appear at any moment. The music also adds a lot to the experience, with its heavy metal influence fitting perfectly with the game's style. Doom is not a traditional horror game, but it's definitely helped create the feeling of being trapped in a dangerous place. I also tried the original MS-DOS version, and while it's interesting from a historical perspective, the modern Steam version is definitely the way I would recommend most players play it today. The DOS version has its charm. It is the original experience, and features like naming your save files are a nicer reminder of older PC gaming. However, it is more pixelated, the controls feel more stiffer, and the overall experience is less comforting on a modern computer. The modern version keeps what makes Doom great, while adding improvements like smooth controls, cleaner visuals, better map presentation, and small quality of life features like the crosshair feedback. The original is important to preserve, but the modern release is the better experience for most players. Extra content. Doom has plenty of additional content. There are secret maps, cheats, and mod support. The cheats are especially interesting because they are part of the original game and became part of Doom's identity. Mods are also a huge part of Doom's legacy, and there is a reason people are still creating content for the game decades later. One thing I didn't want to overlook is Doom's multiplayer. In 1993, Doom was not just a single player shooter, it also allowed players to experience the game together through co-op and deathmatch. This was a huge deal at the time and helped shape the future of multiplayer FPS games. I jumped into an online deathmatch to see how it still holds up today, and I was surprised how much fun it still was. The gameplay is simple compared to modern shooters, with no progression system or unlocks, but the core mechanics still work. The fast movements makes every match chaotic and enjoyable. The most impressive thing is that Doom's multiplayer community is still active over 30 years later, with players still creating custom maps. So, is the game worth playing? Yes. The game is part of gaming history, But with the modern Steam releases and the way the community still engages with the game, makes the game still hold up today. So thank you everyone for watching. I did appreciate anyone who is watching this, and I hope to see you all in the next game review.